Hi, everyone. If I can ask you to take your seats. We're going to begin here. Joining me right now on stage, we have the Prime Minister of Georgia, Irakli Garibashvili, and I think we will have behind us, not his big brother, but his big sister, we'll have the President of Moldova, Maya Sandu. Maya, it's great, Madam President, it's great to see you. Thank you for joining us. We're going to have this very conversational, and we will forget that you're actually not in the room. We're going to make this very much like you are in the room. Thank you for joining us. Mr. Prime Minister, why don't you have a seat? If I can ask the gentleman in the front to take a seat, please. Great, thank you. And thank you all. And I'm going to encourage everyone to post your questions on the app, the GlobeSec app. These are fed to me right here in this. We'll also be taking questions in this room, and we'll try to be as interactive as we can. We've got a good 40 minutes that we can have a very solid discussion on solidifying the neighborhood partnership with Eastern allies, which is really to look at two of the key nations that really have been on the fault lines for a long time. As I look at the Prime Minister here, Prime Minister Garibashvili, in a way, the foreshock of much of what has been discussed at GlobeSec with Russia's incursion into Ukraine, the foreshock of that is Russia's incursion into Georgia in 2008. As I look at the president in Moldova, we can't help but notice that many people worry about the future course of Moldova, and that's what makes this discussion about inclusion in the EU, inclusion in NATO, inclusion in international institutions so vital and important. So let me just start with the Prime Minister, and it's great to see you. I'd like to just know, as we sit in this highly tense time, what's your up-at-night issue? What is your biggest burning priority as you look at your desk every day that you have to solve?
First of all, thank you very much for inviting us. It's a great opportunity to talk about the Georgian story, Georgia's achievements, problems and challenges that we have in our country. So, first of all, I want to tell you very briefly Georgian experience and Georgia's story. Over the past several years, we have implemented very ambitious reforms since 2012 in all directions: judiciary, media freedom, rule of law, consolidating democracy. And in 2014, we signed the association agreement. And this is a master plan for our country, a master plan for Georgia's Europeanization and modernization. And since then, of course, we have achieved some tangible results. And I'll tell you a few examples. The free trade agreement with the European Union, the visa-free regime, and just recently now we applied officially the application for EU membership. This is a historic decision. And of course, when I'm talking about the integration and the path that we're together with our people pursuing, this is the decision of our people. Georgian people believes that we are part of European family. Georgia belongs to Europe. Of course, now we're waiting for the decision of the European Commission regarding
when is that expected?
The candidacy. We believe that we are doing everything. We have achieved, as I said, tangible results. Let's take the association agreement. 45% of the agreement has already been fulfilled. The DCFTA, all kind of progress. The progress is remarkable, and Georgia has been a front runner. I would not exaggerate to say that Georgia has always been a front runner of the Eastern Partnership countries. So, therefore, it is a crucial time, especially when we see a full-scale invasion of Russia in Ukraine. This is a historic moment. So now it's up to the European Union to decide whether Europe stands by its allies, by its partners, like-minded countries. So this is, again, I want to say that very crucial and challenging time.
So,
and as you know, Georgia experienced the war in 2008.
Right.
Way before Ukraine.
You were the foreshock.
Way before Crimea
war.
and all this. And we paid the highest price. So who paid the price? Georgian people paid the highest price. Even in the 90s, we had two wars with Russia.
Right.
After we gained the independence. regain the independence. So therefore, this is our determination. This is our choice. Choice, civilizational choice, I would say.
Well, before I jump to Madam President, can you tell me very quickly what your gut feeling is? Do you feel like the EU is leaning into this? Are they trying to help you and they get to yes? Or do you feel there is some recalcitrance, some hesitation on the EU side from your perspective?
Well, I don't want to speculate on...
But you have a gut feeling on...
Of course, we talk out with our friends, with our European friends, and I personally talk with my colleagues, and I had multiple meetings with them, multiple phone calls, and I was in Brussels, in fact, 10 days ago, 2 weeks ago, and I met with all the leadership. And of course, my message is that with the Georgian side, we have done our homework. Now we're waiting for the decision of the European Union. So we have to understand this is a political decision, right? Granting the status or not. This is political, this is strategic, but this is moral as well, and this is symbolic. So what kind of message are we sending out to, for example, Russia?
Right.
Let's take Georgia. I want to talk about my country. I don't want to talk about my
Right.
country, but Georgia has been loyal to European values, standards, fundamental values of European Union, and we have paid the highest price possible. And we are pursuing our reform. We're doing all the progress in every direction. So we signed the association agreement,
Right.
free trade, visa-free. Now the application has been submitted. So
Right.
now it's up to Europe to decide.
Madam President, I'd love to ask you the same thing. What is your highest priority right now in Moldova? You know, as you are dealing with the priorities every day that matter, I guess one of the things I'm trying to convey to our audience today, both in this room and online, is the sense of consequence over these decisions regarding the EU, that they are extraordinary and they matter. I think sometimes, you know, on the other side of the equation, the so-called West side of the equation, there can be a kind of ambivalence, you know, but maybe we do this, maybe we don't. Tell us why your priority should be our priority. You're muted. Okay, there you go. Go ahead.
Thank you for the invitation. I'm sorry I was not able to be there in person. We have many concerns, and we had lots of challenges even before the war. Now the external crises are making things even more difficult. Of course, safety and security are big concerns for us, given that we are very close to the war zone, the economic hardship, the energy crisis. All these problems are serious problems for Moldova, as they are for many other countries. We're also trying to do our part in terms of helping the Ukrainian refugees. But when we talk about why this decision, a positive answer to our application, a positive answer from EU is important to us, it is important because our democracy depends on that. Because in our part of the world, in our region, democracy long-term can survive only if Moldova, Ukraine and Georgia will become part of EU. Such are the realities of our region and such are the realities of the geopolitics. We have been dreaming of becoming a EU member for a long time. We have been planning to submit the application. Of course, we submitted it now in this dramatic situation because things became more evident that we can be safe, that we can save our democracy, that we can make plans in Moldova only if we become one day part of the EU. And remaining in this buffer zone, in grey area, is a very bad news for us. And that's why we're trying to get a positive sign from EU. And it's also important short term, especially since we are facing the security challenges. I have to answer people every day, young people, journalists, investors. When they ask me, are they safe? I tell them they're safe today, but I'm not sure what's going to happen in 2 or 3 months from now. And to convince these people to give themselves a chance in Moldova, and we need them because Moldova already lost 1 million people, and to make the country attractive and to convince these people to continue to help us with reforms, and we have many things to do, I need to give them, we need to have good news for them. And the good news would be the light at the end of the tunnel, that even though the country is not in a good situation now, the region is very unstable, and unfortunately it will continue to be unstable for some time. Having the clear plan and having the status candidate would send a signal to all these people that even though things are very difficult today, they're going to be difficult tomorrow. One day, Moldova is going to become part of the safe world.
Madam President, let me ask you this question. I'm going to try to be tactful. Do you find your interlocutors on integration with the EU, as I asked the Prime Minister, bought in, leaning in, trying to help? Or do you find them in America, and you graduated from the John F. Kennedy School in Harvard, so that you're getting a lot of thoughts and prayers from the West, which means not much, with all due respect to our member of the clergy here in the front. But are you getting thoughts and prayers for Moldova's future, or are you getting tangible, helpful, proactive partnership?
We have been getting support from you all these years. When we were fighting against an oligarchic regime and trying to save democracy, EU was next to us helping. EU is helping today when we are facing the refugee crisis and the consequences of the war in Ukraine. I do understand this is a difficult political decision, and I do understand that different countries have different views. At the same time, this is a geopolitical decision, and it should be seen like that, because just granting us the candidate status doesn't mean accepting us into EU. We're not looking for a shortcut. We recognize we have a long way to go. All our counterparts in EU see that our reform efforts are genuine, and we are working hard on reforming justice, and we are very committed on fighting corruption and building strong institutions, because corruption has been a big problem for the country, and we are committed and we're working hard on improving business environment. So our counterparts in EU do see our efforts as genuine. Their concerns are of a different nature, but again, as I said, we're not looking for shortcuts. They should see this as a geopolitical opportunity, and they just should give us the chance. And then it should be the meritocracy, and the countries which have the chance will have the time to show how quickly they can implement the commitments that they've made towards EU. So this is what we're asking. We're asking for this chance.
Let me ask you a question, Mr. Prime Minister, and again, I'm going to try to be tactful here, but I think a lot of concerns in Europe, in the EU, which is a values-based agreement across these nations, is that nations sometimes get in and that the values arrangements they had made are ones they forget. And it becomes complicated in that relationship. We don't have to call out nations in this particular case, but some are pretty close to here. And so I guess in that arrangement, how does that affect the the solvency, if you will, of what you're talking about, a values-based agreement, of bringing Georgia forward so that you can communicate that Georgia will not be a nation that slips in those commitments?
Well, first of all, I think we have to make it very clear. So today we are talking about the candidacy, right? About the candidate status.
Right.
We're not talking about the membership.
Right.
We understand, as President also mentioned, we're not we're not looking for a shortcut, or we're not looking for something that is for granted, for free. We understand it's a long process.
Right.
We understand we have to continue all our reforms, and we took commitments. We'll continue all these reforms. But today, the question is about granting the candidate status or not. And it's a message. It is a message to all of us, to all our nations. It's a message to Russia as well. So from our side, I want to repeat. So we have implemented all these reforms. We have strengthened democratic institutions. We are one of the best performers, best reformers in the wider region, not only in our region, but in the wider region. In terms of transparency, accountability, or media freedom, rule of law, judicial reforms. Let's take, for example, several days ago, according to World Bank, Georgia is #1 in terms of budget transparency or doing business, or in every direction, Georgia has been the best performer. So now, then my question is that why not? I mean, granting the candidate status would give us additional motivation. This will be a recognition of our progress that we achieved. But again, of course, we understand that it's a working process. We will continue all the reforms. And we will be motivated, we will be in shape always, you know. And of course, there will be a monitoring mission from the European Union. It's not a one-day, let's say, decision, right? It's a long process till we achieve the full-fledged membership. So therefore, I would still repeat the same. We expect wise decision from the European Union. Because let's be very open and frank here. Russia, when invaded Georgia in 2008, at that time the world thought maybe the context was different and this and that. Let me remind everyone that since 2008, no one in this world imposed sanctions on Russia. No one. On the contrary, we saw some new restart, recharge, or refresh, or all kind of new relationship with Russia, right? In 2014, the world was shocked.
So in your view, that became a green light?
That's right, when Russia annexed Crimea. And again, just recently, the whole world was surprised and shocked when Russia invaded Ukraine. So I mean that the answer from the West must be adequate, must be relevant, must be proportional. So in today's time, difficult times, if the European Union leaves all these countries, like-minded partners, and associated trio like Moldova, Ukraine, Georgia, without granting the symbolic, let's say, candidate status, I would not hesitate to say that this would be a mistake. Because from our side, we have done everything we're doing, and we're committed to do and continue all the reforms. So.
Let me ask Madam President one last question. We're going to go to our questions on Slido and to all of you who have questions coming in on the GlobeSep app. So thank you very much. Madam President, Francis Fukuyama has said recently, I interviewed him recently, and he said that in his view, democracies became lazy. They became inattentive to what it took to build, keep, maintain democracy in all of its forms. That means is respect for political minorities as well as those who win, and that Ukraine today is reminding a generation of people who did not have any experience with the Cold War what fighting for democracy, sovereignty, freedom is, and so that to the degree that he was talking about Americans are tuning in, they're getting that. You came in and you won an election based on pivoting to the Western course, Western values, democracy. Vladimir Putin and many people around him, whom I've interviewed, have said they see democracy as fading out, as dying, as stubborn. And I am just wondering how the average Moldovan citizen is feeling right now, looking at what is happening in Ukraine. They elected you, but what are they feeling in their gut about this moment? And are Western democracies, in Francis Fukuyama's term, too lazy?
Well, it is true that we have to fight more for democracy, that things are not given for granted. But in my country, we have been fighting for democracy all these years, especially because we are in this gray area, in this buffer zone. And I am actually proud of the Moldovans because we haven't allowed an authoritarian regime to settle here for years. Yes, that was not easy. We had to fight in the streets. We had to, even to build political parties from scratch, like I did together with my team, and to prove what real democracy means. And to us, we had to prove that democracy is about transparent and legal financing of political parties, that democracy can be done without the ownership of TV channels and so on. So we actually had to show to people what democracy is, and it can be done through clean politics. And we got people's support for this type of political parties and for this type of governance. But then now we have these huge external challenges. So, of course, there is the risk that Moldovans can be disappointed even after so much effort in such a difficult environment and in a difficult region, we will not get enough support to stay part of the free world.
Right.
But yes, I do believe that the entire world, no matter whether you are in a developed, consolidated democracy or in a fragile democracy like Moldova, will have to increase our efforts to defend democracy. And I believe that this is what this decision of the EU is about when I say that this is a geopolitical decision, because this is about helping 3 more countries to stay part of the democratic world, or just leaving them, and then we don't know what would be the chances. As I said, in this part of the world, the sustainability of the democracy depends on the EU decision.
Did you want to respond?
Yes, I would add a few more words regarding Georgia's wish to become a member of the European Union. We're talking to European friends, and I want to make it very clear. Georgia is not a country which is asking always for something for free, something for granted, but we do also contribute. And I'll give you a few examples. Several years ago, we decided to send our troops to Central African Republic. This was a hard decision, difficult decision, because why?
Is this your
Union
first
could not
out-of-area deployment of troops?
That's right. This was an EU-led operation in Central African Republic, and this was a difficult decision. We sent 1 battalion. More than 500 troops were sent to Central African Republic to help our European friends. So what I mean is that we always contribute, and we Georgia and Georgians are always where Europe needs us, where the world, where the international community needs us. Or let's say NATO, let's take NATO operations and Georgia's participation in NATO operations. In Iraq, in Afghanistan, we have 2,000 troops.
Right.
More than 35 our brave soldiers died, sacrificed their lives to this international idea to fight against terrorism and to fight for the peace and security, to the global peace and security.
Right.
So I mean that, and more than 500 soldiers were severely injured. So my last comment is that Georgia is not asking for something for free, for granted, but we are asking for fair treatment.
Let me pose a question, both of you, from Anton. Excuse me, Anton, this is going to be a tough one. Bendar Zevsky. He asked, could you comment, please, on the public opinion in your countries towards Russia and the European Union, and if the polarized public can destabilize the situation in Moldova and Georgia? And I should just add, both of you have Russian troops within your national boundaries. So does that become something that helps you in your efforts to promote democracy in the areas of the country that they do not occupy, or does it become a constant challenge and threat and reminder? Let me start with Madam President.
Well, the polls show that today between 60 and closer to 70% of Moldovans would like the country to become a member of the EU. We had an important share of population which wanted good relations with Russia. Things have changed since Russia started the aggression against Ukraine, so this figure has reduced. But we do have a strong popular support for the EU integration agenda. And this is despite the propaganda, and Moldova has been subject to very extensive propaganda. We are trying to take measures now to protect people, but of course this is a problem not easy to solve. Of course, the Russian troops on our territory are a big problem. This goes against our constitution, against our independence, and this is a vulnerability, especially now with the war in Ukraine. This has become a much bigger problem. We are trying, of course, to do our best to keep things quiet, but That's a very big problem for us.
Thank you. Mr. Prime Minister?
Well, I have to say that more than 80% of Georgian population support European integration, Euro-Atlantic integration, and I have to say that this is the choice, again, I want to repeat, of our people. And we didn't start this journey just 30 years ago. This has always been a dream, a wish, a desire of our people, of our ancestors, centuries ago. So in terms of challenges, of course, the biggest challenge is, of course, the occupation, ongoing occupation. 20% of our territory is occupied by Russia. And we live together with the Russian troops on our territory. They're based like 40 kilometers away from my office, from the capital city, Tbilisi. So therefore, of course, Georgia is vulnerable. Of course, Georgia is in a very difficult situation. But regardless, of course, we have been very loyal to our fundamental, let's say, principles, values, and to our dedication to become a member of the European Union and NATO. So therefore, I have to repeat again.
Do you train your citizens in the kinds of potential combat you're seeing unfold in Ukraine right now, worrying that Russia may step over those lines? I think it's been impressive. When I was in Estonia recently, in Tallinn, they're training their people, their regular citizens, in the kind of potential combat that you're seeing in Ukraine today. And I'm just interested in if
training
you're doing
to do what? To counter
to fight if you get invaded, if you get
unfortunately, no one experienced the war with Russia in the European Union. We experienced this 3 times already.
Right.
2 in the 90s when we regained independence. We had wars in Abkhazia and Ossetia, in these 2 breakaway regions, and then in 2008, large-scale war. But we know the price of the war. Therefore, peace and stability is the most important achievement of our government. And this is the only period Georgia has had a long-term peace and stability in our country. Of course, we are doing everything to maintain peace and stability.
Well, thank you. Let's take this question from this gentleman right here in the second row. And if you'll identify yourself, please.
Yeah, hi. So I'm Marko Nemet from Slovakia. I have just a quick question for both of you, basically. I want to just ask, where do you see your countries in the upcoming 5 to 10 years in the EU? And if yes, then what's need to be done from your side, from your country? Thank you very much.
Why don't we go to Madam President first? What are the steps you need to take for membership in the EU?
We need to do exactly what we promised to our people at the elections, to build a strong state, to eliminate corruption from state institutions. We have started the reforms in the injustice. We are starting now with the vetting process of judges and prosecutors. We are improving the business environment because we need to provide people with economic opportunities, attract investments. We need to solve the issues in the energy because of Moldova's dependence on Russia on energy. We need to build alternatives, and of course, we're exploring the green energy.
Right.
So the same things that we have promised to our people and that our citizens are expecting from us. These are the things that the EU wants us to do. So we have common objectives, and this makes it easier for us to actually achieve them. As I said, the external challenges are making it a little bit more difficult, but no matter the external challenges, we continue the reform process.
Right. Mr. Prime Minister, I think you've laid out a number of things you've already done, but is there anything you didn't mention that you're still on the list?
Well, I think I would add a few more words. Georgia is a natural European country, European state. And again, I would say that we have this, I would say, constitution, which is the association agreement, which is the master plan. So we know exactly what we should do, and we're, of course, pursuing these reforms, and we took commitments, and we know how to transform our country and make it into a real European state. So after 5-10 years, of course, we see ourselves in Europe, as in European Union. After 10 years, of course, this is our dream and this is our wish.
Thank you. Right here. Yes, hi.
My question is actually
I don't know if your microphone is on. Are we hearing the... Nope.
Yeah.
There we go.
Again, Konstantin Eget, Deutsche Welle. My question is both to the Madam President and to Mr. Prime Minister. Do you think that the EU candidate status, if it is acquired, will serve as a kind of security guarantee from any kind of Russian armed action against your countries? And very brief follow-up to Madam President, if I may. Do you think, or rather, do you count on Romania coming to your aid in case of Russian military action?
Thank you. Madam President?
Well, we do believe that we will be safer if we get a positive decision by EU. And again, this is precisely why we submitted the application now, after this war has started. We are concerned about our security. We have been discussing such situations. I mean, if something like that happens, we have been discussing this with Romania and with other partners that Moldova has. And we do hope, even though we don't have very clear answers, we do hope that we'll get support. But we are doing our best to try to keep Moldova out of the war, to keep this here.
And Mr. President, I'd like you to answer it, but as you do answer it, I also want to ask, how cataclysmic would it not to have that accepted by the EU?
Well, I think we should, again, clarify this issue because this is a very important question. The question was whether the candidate status will give security guarantees. Of course not. Now, we're not here to talk about the security guarantees, right? The only organization that I know in the world that provides security guarantees is NATO. Today, here, we're talking about the candidate status, which is symbolic, but meaningful, of course. For us, this is meaningful. Therefore, my answer is, of course, not. The candidate status will not provide security guarantees to neither Georgia nor Moldova or Ukraine, but this is rather an encouragement and will give more motivation to the countries to continue its reforms.
Well, thank you. But we have a question again from the app, and this is to President Sandu. Do you think that Moldova's constitutional neutrality is sustainable in light of the Russian invasion of Ukraine?
Well, the constitutional...
And I should say this is from Gergo Ilis. So, Gergo, thank you. Madam President, go ahead.
The constitutional neutrality is not respected by Russia because they have Russian troops stationing here illegally. So, no, I don't believe that the neutrality in constitution protects us. This has been the decision of the people when the constitutionals voted. I have to say that still a large part of the population believes that neutrality should be preserved, and we respect the will of the people, but we are concerned and we understand the risks to our security and our safety, and are trying to do our best. In the meantime, we're trying to consolidate a little bit our defense system, talking to the EU. EU has a new initiative, the Initiative for Peace, talking to our partners. But again, we believe we need to be part of a bigger family to feel safe.
Thank you. Let's take a question right here. Yes, hi.
Yeah, Garibashvili, thank you very much for doing this. Twofold question. One is there anything that you wish to be seeing or getting, particularly from America and Washington at the moment? And to what extent do you think domestic polarization is hindering Georgia in this process that we're talking about?
You mean U.S. domestic polarization?
No, Georgian.
Georgian domestic polarization. Mr. Prime Minister.
Well, the polarization is everywhere. In every country. This is Georgia's politics is full of emotions. We have been trying to de-escalate, to minimize the polarization. And I think today we have a pretty stable political environment, political stability, economic stability. We have very good and strong economic growth. Last year we had 10.4% economic growth. This year, first quarter, we have 14.4% economic growth. Well, of course, the opposition is everywhere.
Right.
The job of the opposition is to criticize the government, which is very normal. We have lots of opposition parties in the parliament. We have 9 parties in the parliament. We have lots of opposition TV channels. The media outlet is very, let's say, diversified. As to the first question, what Georgia can ask the U.S., I want to say that America has helped Georgia since we regained our independence significantly. More than $6 billion was donated to Georgia over the last 3 decades. And U.S. has been very generous in supporting Georgian defense forces, providing weapons, training our military personnel, our soldiers,
Right.
and supporting us on our way towards Euro-Atlantic integration, our path, strengthening democratic institutions, and so on. And we have very good cooperation and truly strong partnership and friendship, and of course we will continue this strategic relationship with America.
Thank you. So what I'm going to do now is take 2 questions. I got them both right here because I fear this gentleman if I don't get him in. But we'll take these 2 questions and then wrap here. Go ahead, real quick.
Thank you so much. I will be brief. Pavel Havlicek from Association for International Affairs. I have a question to you, Mr. Prime Minister. You said that you like to talk about your country,
right,
and that you also asked us why Georgia shouldn't be given, why not to give Georgia candidate status. My question is, and I will be taking us back to last year actually, 11th of July, when a journalist and cameraman was killed in the middle of Tbilisi during the Tbilisi Pride when attacked by the far-right riots. Your government did nothing to protect the activists. Will your government this year repeat the same mistake, or will it really stand up for European values? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Let's go to Elmar Brock right here. Elmar, I don't think your mic's on.
Technology is nothing for man.
Okay. Good friend, go ahead.
Dear President, dear Maya, dear Prime Minister, I think candidate status should be given. And I believe that it's needed that this does not become in the future, especially towards Ukraine, as a negotiation chip of the man in Moscow. But that does not mean membership in the immediate future. What do you think about that the association agreements all 3 countries have, could you develop to something like a European Economic Area, so to have step-by-step progress of the integration process where the citizens of your country feel as a progress, not do the same mistake as we do in the Western Balkans, look only for membership and nothing happens for 30 years?
Let me ask Madam President to take that question first.
Thank you very much for the support and thank you for the suggestion. I think it's a very good idea. First of all, Moldova benefited enormously from the neighborhood policy. Today, 2/3 of Moldovan exports go to EU. I was just trying to imagine what it would have meant if 2/3 were going to the east, to Russia, like 10 years ago before the Eastern Partnership, and what this would have meant now for the country. So EU is also stability in terms of economy. And by the way, even Transnistria region, which also benefits from the free trade regime with the EU, now exports half of its goods and services to EU. So this is also helping integrating even the Transnistrian region. So I do believe that this is a good idea. I also believe it's a good idea to have this political community that President Macron was talking, if this is a step towards accession and not a replacement. So any such initiatives would, of course, help, and we would support and appreciate them.
Oh, thank you. Mr. Prime Minister, feel free to respond to both questions.
Okay. Well, first question from the gentleman. First of all, I have to remind you all that in 2014, we adopted the anti-discrimination law to eradicate all kind of discrimination. And to be honest with you, it's not a problem. And of course, in many countries, even in the member states of the European Union, there are some issues, there are some challenges related to these issues. But this information is not correct. The gentleman said that the operator was killed during this confrontation. I don't want to bother you with all the details here, but I will tell you very briefly. The police arrested more than 30 people who attacked the journalists, operators, and they are prosecuted. They are in jail. This is the obligation of the state to protect every single citizen, regardless their orientation or something like that. And again, I want to remind you that the law that exists in Georgia protects every citizen. Regarding the second question from Mr. Bruck, thank you very much. Nice to see you, sir. Given candidate status, of course, I agree with you, and I've said this, does not mean given membership. So we should not be afraid of giving this encouragement, this motivation to these young democracies, Georgia, Moldova, Ukraine. And let's imagine that EU does not give the candidate status. Who will be happy in this world because of that? Only Russia. But look, what is the example? What is the message that we're spreading in the countries surrounded in our region and beyond in the wider region? That these countries have been loyal, they've been doing all the reforms, they signed association agreement, visa-free, which is tangible, and which our citizens really, use, and we are absolutely grateful. A free trade agreement. Now they submitted this application, and all of a sudden, the European Union decided not to give them this symbolic but meaningful status. Again, I think this would be a mistake, and I think we should convince our European friends to give candidate status to all three countries.
Well, listen, I want to thank both of you, thank the audience very much. I'm very happy a question did come up about, in this case, which LGBTQ rights, but it's about rights across the board. And I once told someone, when I was studying the European Union a long time ago on whether its expansion was good or bad, it kind of reminded me of the old Star Trek movie. This may sound weird, where the bad folks in the Star Trek movie were the Borg, and you either assimilated with them or you got wiped out. And to a certain degree, the Europeans and the way they assimilate and have been able to assimilate other cultures and bring other cultures into a code of consistency and consistent standards and rights has since I once wrote that paper many years ago, have become very, very impressive. And I understand why this is such a high stakes and important issue for both Georgia and Moldova. Please give a round of applause to Prime Minister Irakli Garibashvili of Georgia and President Mayu Sandu. Thank you both so much. I will tell everyone that we'll be back at the Danube stage at 10 minutes after 4. There's a coffee break now. Thank you all for joining us. Sorry we couldn't get to more questions.